Extra Point with Ryan Justice is sponsored by The Phone Medic. For the best in cell phone, tablet, or laptop repairs, The Phone Medic is the only choice for you. The Phone Medic also offers gaming PCs and laptops for both gamers and everyday users. Visit one of the 3 Phone Medic locations in Amarillo, Canyon, and their new location in Lubbock today. Hello, football fans! Welcome to The Extra Point with Ryan Justice. Happy New Year, everybody, and welcome back to The Extra Point after a holiday break. It is time to get right back in it. We are at week 18 in the NFL, which means it is the final week of the NFL season, and a lot has happened over the holiday break. The playoff picture has shifted and changed, and boy, there are some pretty highly contested races in the NFL. But hope you guys had a great New Year. Hope you ate your black-eyed peas and cabbage. I just did. And hope you guys got everything you wanted for Christmas. But now it's time to get back to business. We are ramping up to go into the playoffs. Let's kick it off and bring in the one and only Andrew Martinez. How's it going, Andy?
Good, man. How were all the holidays for you? Christmas, New Year's, all that fun stuff?
It was good. It was great. I mean, there was one thing about it. We'll get into it a little bit later. There was one thing about it that I could have changed, and let's see if you can figure it out over the course of the show. I mean, you'll know when you see it, but hey, win some, you lose some. So, but we'll get right into it, man, with our hot topics. But first off, guys, go like, share, and subscribe. Be sure you're subscribed on Twitch because, again, we're looking to get to that 50 follower mark. We're looking to get to where we can do exclusive subscriber stuff, giveaways, things like that. We're also looking to hopefully, by the Super Bowl, get our first live show going here at one of our locations, in one of the cool locations that we have here in Amarillo. Keep an eye out for that, but we're looking to get in touch with our fans a little bit more, do some giveaways, do some things that we can, kind of say hi and thanks for being a listener on the show. So hopefully I'm sounding all right, guys. Hopefully I'm not getting too crazy. May have to switch mics here, but hey, technology, new camera, all that fun stuff. But we'll get right into it with the hot topics. Man, Andy, the race for the last AFC wildcard spot has heated up. It is now down to the Bengals, the Dolphins, and the Broncos for that 7th spot in the AFC.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be there. If you're a Joe Burrow fan, you're going to be hoping that the Chiefs keep on winning and can hold off the Broncos again like they did in the season. If you're the Dolphins, you're hoping some key losses too. It's a lot of it's fate in other people's hands, and so it's going to be a wild ride to see who gets that last spot between those teams. But man, yeah, it's definitely who knows what's gonna happen in that race for sure. Oh, we lost your sound there, Ryan.
How's that, guys? Much better?
Yeah,
trying to get everything taken care of. Much better for you guys?
Yeah, it's all good there.
Alrighty. Well, so Cincy is the one that needs the most help. They need a win plus a Denver loss, and they need a win plus a Denver loss versus Kansas City and Miami to lose or tie against the Jets. For the Denver Broncos, they basically need to win and get in, and then the Dolphins need to win plus the Denver loss at Kansas City. We've had some news regarding these games. Kansas City starting Carson Wentz, so they're basically resting all their starters. In fact, in between the Christmas games and when the Kansas City Chiefs will play again, it will be around 20-something days. So I would imagine the most likely scenario here, barring something crazy going on, Denver's going to beat Kansas City and get that number 7 spot.
Yeah, I mean, unless something happens in Denver and it all blows up in their face, looks like the Chiefs have been like, "Hey, you want us to play 3 games in 11 days or whatever that math turned out to be. We're like, we're going to take the back of the month off. So yeah, I mean, it's not for Miami and Cincy. It's not looking great, but I
Mm-mm.
mean, you never know what could happen. We've seen crazier things this season for sure. So,
Yeah, and
it's we're hoping.
yeah, and it always comes down to one of these last two spots. The AFC has been pretty close throughout this whole season. The big story here, and I think the one that everyone's pulling for, is Cincinnati. Cincinnati winning four straight after starting 4-6. All the turmoil around the offense, all the the lackluster defense that we have had, and or that we've seen from Cincy, and for Joe Burrow to have the season that he's been having, Jamar Chase to have the season that he's been having, there's a lot on the line more than just the playoffs for this. I really feel like if Joe Burrow gets this team into the playoffs, then it's going to be like he's very much the favorite in the MVP race.
I mean, if again, I think if he can get there, even if he doesn't get there, man, Joe Burrow has really shown. If it's not because of a lot has come down to him on some of these games where they haven't won. It's that defense really hadn't held up to their end of the deal, and but man, Joe Burrow's had one heck of a year, and if he makes it these playoffs, man, he's going to be they'll be looking for blood, and that's not a thing you want to be going against for sure.
Yeah, I think out of these teams, since he's probably the one I wouldn't want to match up with. Denver's probably the most complete team, I guess, if you could look at the 7 seed like that. But since he's definitely the one that because you're going to have to get in a shootout with him. And since he's the most equipped to win a shootout, with the way Chase and Higgins have been playing, with Chase Brown playing the way that he's been playing, it has been such a roller coaster year for Cincy, and I want to see them get in because I'm a Joe Burrow. I'm a Joe Burrow fan. I want to. I know I got the H on my head, but I want to see Joe Burrow get in, simply because they deserve it. Like, do I want to play them? No, but I want to see Cincy get in. Moving on to the next one. So it came out, I believe, yesterday. Deshaun Watson restructured the contract. He's been out for the whole year with, I believe, a torn ACL. He restructured the contract, but there has not been a commitment to him being the starter. He will be back in Cleveland next season, but there has been talk, especially with as high as Cleveland is in the draft order, of a quarterback competition happening with the Browns. Um, there's no way I would say Watson outright wins a starting job, unless they are solely going off of what he has been paid. But if there was a quarterback competition in Cleveland, with the way the quarterback class is looking this year, should they draft a quarterback, or do they look to a veteran to come in and kind of challenge Watson?
I think I don't know if you draft in a quarterback that's where that is, especially with how much money you're paying him. Even with the restructured contract, yeah, that frees up your cap space for other positions to make that stream make that team a little stronger. But I don't know if drafting a guy to be like, hey, we're going to do this is the smart move. Maybe you pick up someone who's not super expensive and a veteran guy who's been there, and bring that in, and then have that, hey, let's make Watson, earn this spot. Yeah, we restructure, but make him earn this money that we're going to pay him a lot anyways. But, I don't know if drafting a rookie for that competition is going to be the right move for them.
No, I mean, at this point with them, I don't know what their cap hit looks like. I'm looking for what they saved on the cap this year, or with the restructure, but I don't know if there's a quarterback that is good enough to beat out Deshaun Watson, or to at least establish a clear, like, this guy is miles ahead of Deshaun Watson. Um, that's going to be in this draft class. Maybe next year. But I think there's some veterans out there. I don't know if they're going to be in the market for going out and trying to compete for maybe a Sam Darnold, which I can't believe I'm saying that in 2025. But I don't think that they're going to be out for some of the top names that might be out there. But if they can find somebody who is good, or even like I don't know if they would I don't know what they would do for this, but JJ McCarthy has been on the table for possibly being traded from the Vikings. They can make a trade for a guy like him. Depending on how some of these backups in these week 18, we've seen guys look really good in week 18 and then get picked up by other teams. We'll see how some of them end up playing, but they can't go with what they have. Jameis Winston gave you the Jameis Winston experience. DTR is what we've seen him to be, which is a very last second backup. And on top of that, you got to do something with Nick Chubb. So it's a mess. I'm sure March is going to be eventful for the Cleveland Browns, but it's one to keep an eye on because I don't see Cleveland starting Watson next year at all. But we'll keep an eye on that one. This one came out today. Saquon Barkley, just over 100 yards away from breaking Eric Dickerson's record. He is going to be held out of the Eagles game, so the record is going to be intact. Kind of had this going in the group chat a little bit tonight. But what do you think about Saquon Barkley being held out of this last game? Smart move, or do you let him break the record?
I mean, for me, I say, let him break the record. I get it. You're trying, you already have a spot. You're not, you're trying to rest all your guys. You're trying to make sure that guys are going fresh. This isn't, what they call it. There's nothing in it for him to do that besides breaking that season record. But man, how good would it be to start the season off with the Hard Knocks, hey, who's going to pay money for him? And then to finish by breaking this record against the team that let you go, that let you walk out the door. And, very, very cinematic, storytelling right there. But, I get it. Like, I understand it. But, I mean, if Saquon's cool with it, then that's fine too, But I assume that, Sirianni, that's a discussion they had that, it wasn't just like, hey, we're making you do this. It was probably, discussed between them all because, the whole team, from my understanding is that that whole team is excited for him to try to get that, that whole team was pumped when he broke 2,000 during the game. Yeah. I mean, they were going mad for it. So I don't see why anyone's going to stop you from going to, trying to get that extra 100 to get you past that record. But, I get it.
Well, Hunter, yeah, Happy New Year. Yes, I am retired from doing that. For anyone that has known me and my shenanigans, I have decided to internally set myself on fire previous 2 years with the one chip challenge. This New Year's was nowhere near like that. It was mainly trying not to get sick. But I am retired from all hot food eating challenges from here on out. I learned my lesson. I won one, I lost one, and we will let it be a draw. Let's just leave it at that. As far as the Saquon thing, yeah, I'm kind of on both sides of the fence with this equation. I get it because you do want to rest guys. You can't really move up in the seeding. And you don't want to, especially with Saquon, who does have an injury history, you don't want to have something really bad happen to him before the playoffs. But I said this earlier, just kind of in talking in conversation. You can have the best of both worlds because I look at the Chiefs, and I mentioned this a bit earlier, where they got something like 24 days between games and where the starters are going to play between Christmas game and the divisional game that they're playing, because they do have the first round bye. It's 20 something days. And we have seen in college where guys have all that time off and it throws them out of a rhythm. And I would say I wouldn't want to risk this with the Eagles. I know they're going to be playing next week, but you give guys 2 weeks off. I would want to give them a little bit of action, at least the first half. You're playing the Giants. This is essentially week 3 of the preseason all over again. Just you're a lot more banged up, but which I mean probably makes the point to rest them. But essentially, it's you could treat it like week 3 of the preseason. You go out there, you let the starters play two, maybe 2.5 quarters, get yourself a comfortable lead, and then pull them. So that way you're not throwing yourself off a rhythm. You're not, you're keeping things kind of going and the momentum rolling, which there's been a lot of momentum for the Eagles, but you kind of keep guys loosened up and then you rest them for the rest of the second half. Plus, that also gives Saquon a chance at breaking the record because Saquon could get 100 and something yards easy, especially on that defense when he ran all over them in the last game. I believe he ran for almost 300 yards in the last game against them, I believe. He was well over 200. But, yeah, I'd say you can have the best of both worlds. Get him in there, especially behind that offensive line. The Giants are going to really pose a threat to him. Get him in there. Get the guys going for the first half. Hurts, understandably, will not be playing. He's just coming off the concussion. Understandably, Hurts should not play. But let Saquon get in there, especially if Hurts some reason isn't ready for the playoff game. I would definitely want that group gelling a little bit more. Especially now that Pickett's hurt too. I want that group gelling a little bit more, but we'll see. Eagles definitely a threat in the playoffs, definitely a Super Bowl contender going into the playoffs. Guys, remember to go and check out our sponsors, the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock for all your tech repair needs. Go check them out if you need a phone or laptop or tablet repaired. Check them out. If you're in the market for a new gaming PC, phone, laptop, console, anything like that, maybe you need a late Christmas present, go check out Gabe and the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. And guys, hey, sound off in the comments section. We want to hear from you. Shout out your team. Let us know if you disagree with us. Let us know if you agree with us. Heck, tell us if we're stupid. We want to hear from you guys. If you want to call us out for trying to light ourselves on fire internally with a really hot chip, do that. We want to hear from you. We love hearing from the people that tune in and help make this show. We're going to go on to game reactions, and this is the time of year where we start getting the Saturday games. Saturday was a big one with the Steelers. Christmas. This was our Christmas game. So this is where we start getting the triple, the big Saturday games too. We also had one this past weekend, but Christmas, the Chiefs and the Steelers played in the first game on Netflix. And this was the game I think everyone was waiting to see from Kansas City, where the Chiefs just had that complete victory over a team. It wasn't a close game. It wasn't a one-score game. Kansas City just straight up imposed their will on somebody, and that is scary.
Yeah, and I think that's what we've been waiting for, man. Again, before this, we've been saying they've been a 13-1 team that, probably a very boring 13-1 team. Before we took the break, now they're 2 weeks later, they're 15-1. This was the game that we wanted to see. Like, oh, these are the Super Bowl champs. Like these are the back-to-back champs. These are the guys who are trying to make that three-peat happen. Kelsey going out there having a record day for the organization. Like, I mean, it looked great for them. You're like, oh, when they're firing, now they're starting to really pick it up and starting to fire. Like, man, hopefully, this long break for them, like you said, maybe throws off that rhythm for any team that's going to have to go into Arrowhead and try to, go against them, because man, if that's the last time we see them, man, that was a dominant performance they needed to show the team, saying, hey, come into our house and see what happens.
Yeah, and it was scary. Mahomes 29-38, 320 yards, 3 touchdowns. You had Kareem Hunt with a rushing touchdown as well. And they just went in and straight up imposed their will. And I get the Steelers are kind of reeling a little bit. The offense hasn't looked great. But this was more about the Chiefs getting guys back. And they got Hollywood Brown back. And I heard it mentioned during the game. Getting Hollywood Brown back was big because it allowed Xavier Worthy to go into the role they wanted him. And that has seemed to work out great for the Chiefs. That might have been the missing piece that the Chiefs needed to just kind of get everything to start clicking on the offense, especially with the loss of Rashee Rice. There's still some things on the defense, I think, that could be exposed. Houston was starting to do that before the Tank Dell injury, which, I mean, shout out to Tank Dell, man. That was bad, and that
brutal.
Took all the wind out of our sails. But, I mean, if this is the offense that we're going to get, okay, watch out. Like, it's game on now. I don't know. There's still just something, especially when it comes to the offensive line and how bad those tackles have played this year. There's still just something about the Chiefs and these good defenses that they could end up facing that could really have some problems for them get caught in the playoffs. But on the flip side, man, there's trouble with the Steelers. And you would think, okay, this is a Steelers team where the defense usually can pick up the slack. They have not over the last couple of weeks. And I know Houston's got a lot of questions about them as far as being in the playoffs and are they the weakest playoff team? There's a case to be made for Pittsburgh as well.
Yeah, I think it showed, if that defense really doesn't pick up, again, they couldn't get to Mahomes, which, that's the key. If that's how you're going to beat him, that's how it was going to happen. You have to get to Mahomes. He's shown that in those games where it got real close, that if you could hit him a couple times, man, it really kind of it showed him that that was the weakness, but they couldn't get to him. And so, if they can't get to a guy like Mahomes, it's really going to put them, these real mobile quarterbacks that are in, the rest of the rest of the AFC. You're not going to have a whole lot of luck at that.
Yeah, and I'm looking at the offense too, and it seems to be, hey, shut down George Pickens, and the rest of the offense kind of falls apart. For a while there, Najee Harris looked like he was going to get going. They couldn't get Jalen Warren going either, so that 1-2 punch kind of was just out of the question. Didn't really hear a whole lot from Pat Freiermuth. But yeah, if I'm a Steelers fan, I'm sweating a little bit because now you're up against a Cincy team that's hot, and you need this win in order to get a home playoff game and win the division. I don't know. I mean, Baltimore's probably going to go ahead and take it. They're playing Cleveland on Saturday, but you need this win. You need to go in there, and you need to have your defense look good. You need to show that you're not the team that showed up on Christmas. And I get it. I think the reason these Christmas games weren't as great is because all four of those teams that played on Christmas had 3 games in 11 days. And for the teams that didn't really quite have all their pieces there, Houston and Pittsburgh, it showed. And I don't know if it was lack of preparation or just wear and tear on some of these guys, but you could tell the teams that were ready for those 3 games in 11 days and the teams that weren't. Pittsburgh looked like one of those teams that wasn't. They were just out of gas. And it's a long playoff run. And I get, it's going to look normal. Maybe your Saturday or Sunday game for these first 2 weeks. But if they can't get it right, if they can't fully prepare for these games, because more than likely it's going to be them in Houston. And Houston at home has, aside from maybe from Lamar Jackson and that Will Levis fluke that happened earlier in the year, they've made quarterbacks look bad in NRG. And the defense for Houston, aside from the Baltimore game and maybe a couple of instances this season, the defense is looking good. And now they got Azeez Al-Shire back. So if I'm the Steelers, I would definitely be watching out and trying to move up and get that home playoff game. Because if I'm them, this is probably the best matchup for Houston to get in the playoffs. And I don't think that Pittsburgh has the offense to overcome that defense. Moving on, we had a Saturday game. This was probably one of the better games of the year. This was the game that kind of threw the number 7 seed into absolute chaos, where I believe Denver just needed a win and really get it locked up. But Cincinnati put on a performance for the ages. Joe Burrow, if I'm arguing for Joe Burrow for MVP, this is probably the main point in my PowerPoint presentation that I am pointing to for making that case.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to come out and, push it in, to get into overtime and to get the win. He had over 400 yards, and that's after being. I mean, he was hit a lot that game, and still came out and threw what he did. And man, I think he's the reason why he's he's up there in that conversation of pulling through. I think he's still first in yards and first in touchdowns. Like, yeah. I mean, yeah, Lee, if talk about, we've talked about, Josh Allen in the past, putting it on his back. I mean, that's what Joe Burrow has done. He is willing this team hopefully to the playoffs if and paid a lot of money to for to see if the Chiefs can actually pull one off with their without their starters.
Right? Yeah, and which would shock me because of how well the Broncos have been playing and how well they
Mm-hmm.
played in this game.
Yeah.
But this was the Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase game. Especially for T. Higgins. If T. Higgins, especially when he's going into these contract negotiations next year, to say, hey, don't franchise tag me, he can point to this game because 131 yards on 11 catches with 3 touchdowns is a pretty big statement for pay me. But Joe Burrow, yeah, 39 49, 412 yards. Again, this Bengals offense has been on fire, with the exception of the protection for Joe Burrow has been very iffy. When the weapons are going, Chase Brown, T. Higgins, Yoshivas, Jamar Chase, this is almost an unstoppable offense. Just this defense is just not holding up their end of the bargain. I mean, Joe Burrow took 7 sacks in this game and miraculously did not turn the ball over. But he got hit a lot. And Burrow's got an injury history, which that makes this risky. Look, if they make the playoffs, to me, Joe Burrow has to be the lead guy for the MVP. I don't care what the result is in the playoffs. The fact that he started 4-6 with this team and made it all the way back, like that, you've got to vote for him.
Mm-hmm.
But even if they finish 9-8, even if they don't get it, they win this game on Saturday, they don't get in, and they still finish 9-8, especially after the disastrous start that they had. That's, to me, that's commendable. Like, and then they got to figure it out because you got to figure out a way to pay T. Higgins and rebuild your defense because it can't just be all Trey Hendrickson. For me, they've got rookies. If they decide to let go of T. Higgins, which I'm thinking that's probably going to end up being the case unless they use one of the franchise tags on him, which I don't think he'll be happy with that, and that's going to create a huge cap hit. I'm looking to Yoshivas, I'm looking to Chase Brown, and I'm looking to rebuild this defense and this offensive line so that way, I know Chase needs to be paid too, but I'm looking to both of those guys. I'm looking at all of that and saying, man, maybe T. Higgins can go somewhere. But he's going to be vital, especially in this game against the Steelers, which I think this Bengals offense could definitely move against the Steelers. The Eagles locked up the NFC East over the Cowboys in a dominant fashion. Now, I mean, if you're Micah Parsons and you take away the scoreboard, this was closer than you thought. But, I mean, as one of my good friends said, well, hey, Cooper Rush is just Joe Burrow without all the talent. Sure. But, this was, again, a dominant game. And to me, I thought the Eagles had some moments coming down the stretch while we were on our break where they looked like they might be cooling off. Not in this game. No. Barkley ran all over the Cowboys. And this was one of those, hey, we're going to play our hits. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and even with Kenny Pickett going down, Tyler, we've got this if our main guy goes down.
Yeah, I think the Eagles showed that they're still in that conversation of, hey man, we can do this. Like with I think it's a lot of makeup for last season's debacle at the end of last season, and they've come in here going, hey, we got things right, we're looking good. We're going to show you why we are that team who's going to make this run at it. And again, even with their second, third quarterback, they still showed it. Again, obviously, like you said, like you've said this whole year, again, the ball goes where where Saquon goes, and it showed again. So I think that's what they're showing, that hey man, we're not to be doubted in this conversation.
No, and they looked nothing like the team that was there last year. Last year, they looked like a team that was beat up, that was exhausted, that just was I don't want to say checked out, but they just did not have it in the tank to finish the way that they finished the year. When they did go to the Super Bowl, this doesn't look anything like that. Now they got a guy who is he is a diesel engine. He can go for as
Mhm.
long as you need him to go. as long as he is out there on the field. And now they got Gainwell too, who can back him up and give him the break if he needs it. Yeah, this was just, I mean, they beat up on a beat up Cowboys team. And I mean, what can we say about Dallas that we haven't already said? Especially now that, they've kind of come out and let you know what their strategy is going to be for the offseason, which is going to be more the same. Even though there's a couple of just one or two buttons they could press and have 100 million, have an ample amount of cap space to make some moves. But yeah, this was one of those things where I look at the Eagles and I go, man, and you look at the entire NFC because your 7 seed could be a 12-win team, or it's going to
Mhm.
be a 12-win team.
Yeah.
And I look at the NFC and I'm like, man, every single one of these teams, except for maybe those coming out of the South, is scary. Speaking of the South, the Falcons and the Commanders were playing. These were two teams vying for one of those NFC wildcard spots. This was the second game this past week to go to overtime, and boy, this was the Jaden Daniels show, man. Um, he continues to make this rookie of the year conversation as hard as possible as it could be on offense. To me, he's the leader in the clubhouse right now, and this is one of those games that you pointed to and go argue against that.
Yeah, again, I think this showed that he's really taken this team off. They've gotten behind him. He's shown why he does, why he's really earned that rookie of the year if he wins it. And to for the Commanders to be this successful, is just talk about a turnaround. They haven't been this successful ever, and it's just a hats off to him for helping lead this team and everything, the coaching, everything behind him. But man, talk about it, an exciting game. And Jaden Daniels really showing like, hey, he's legit.
I mean, he had 227 yards in the air and 3 touchdowns, but he also added 127 yards on the ground with 16 carries. I mean, that's putting the team on your back. And of course, you had your guy Brian Robinson also had played a big role. But Zacchaeus, Zach Ertz, you weren't really seeing the guys that you thought you would see pick this up. So Jaden Daniels said, you know what, I'm going to do it myself. Washington is in the playoffs. They are looking like they're one of those last couple of seeds, but man, they are not a team I would want to play in the NFC if if I'm one of those higher seeds. This theoretically, looking at who the 2 seed is, which is Philly, this could be one of those instances where you get a 7 seed beating a 2 seed.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, it could be. It's definitely not not unimaginable for sure. It's just how the seating kind of lays out. It's good. That's what's going to be the interesting thing in the NFC for this week is how this seating finishes out for these teams.
Yeah,
Who have
right.
these wins and losses.
Right now they're 6. They would play Los Angeles, which I tilt that more towards Washington to play to beat the Rams. But I again this is a team that I feel like could be one of those low seeds that goes deep in the playoffs. I want to get your thoughts on this though, because we haven't really talked about this. What are your thoughts on how Michael Penix is doing? Because aside from maybe he was maybe 2 less touchdowns from having an almost identical game to Jaden Daniels.
For Penix for it to be like, hey, we're sitting Cousins, we're throwing Penix in there. I mean, I think to come in this late in the game and have these kind of showings is pretty good, man. It's I wasn't quite sure we were going to see that from him, especially this late in the season without having all the reps, without having everything to come in. I think he's done pretty well for himself.
I'm going to go ahead and say I think he's ended Kirk Cousins' tenure in Atlanta.
Mhm.
He is head and shoulders above what Kirk Cousins has given you, especially over these last couple weeks. And I wonder where Atlanta would be if they hadn't done it sooner. I get Cousins as the veteran. I get he's the guy you threw a lot of money at him to come to you during the offseason. But you need to win, especially when you're in the thick of a playoff race. You need your best shot to win. And doing it with 3 weeks left in the season was not, especially when it's hey, you need to win. And Tampa, who just dropped, who just had Baker Mayfield drop a 5 touchdown game. Thanks, Baker. Um, in this past week. Um, that's hard to say. When they got to win and in, and you need to win and have them lose. And Tampa's playing New Orleans, where they're 13.5 point favorites. If I'm Atlanta and I see, hey, we're more than likely going to be on the outside looking in, you got to look internally and go, you got to start questioning some people and go, why wasn't he put in sooner? Now, no, when I say they had similar games, they almost had identical games. I meant through the air. Penix didn't rush. He had 3 yards on 2 carries. But I'm looking at the outlook of this, of this Atlanta team, and they got some pieces. I'm going to go ahead and say this. I think Kyle Pitts is a bust. He has not been any kind of game changer through 2 coaches now, and I believe 2 or 3 quarterbacks. They just have not looked his way. I know he was second on the team, and he had a pretty emphatic touchdown in this game, but overall in the season, just not that impressive. But I will say this: Atlanta's got Bijan Robinson and Drake London, and Robinson has been a stud this year.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll move on.
Absolutely.
Go ahead. Yeah, we'll move on to the Sunday night game. I know this one hurt, or the Monday night game. I know this one hurts, Andy, but the Lions and the 49ers, the Niners out of playoff contention, but they did not play like it on Monday night. This had turned into a shootout, and I think the Niners kind of exposed, hey, the Lions are really hurt on defense.
Yeah, I mean that's the biggest takeaway from this game is, hey, the Lions are 14-2, but man, that defense is hurt. But if whatever defense is playing them, if you can't stop that offense, they're gonna make you pay for it. You want to shoot out, they're willing to go for it. They'll let you run up the scoreboard on them, but they're gonna come back just as much and hit you in the face and score on as many drives as they possibly can. They don't want to punt the ball. They're going to go for it. They're going to keep going for it. Again, with San Francisco, those Brock Purdy looked great in that first half, but he had those picks in the back half, and he really unfortunately, he kind of let these get 2 weeks in a row where he, maybe even 3, where ball was in his hands, and those games got away from him with those interceptions. But again, the Lions showed in this game, yeah, their defense is hurt, but that offense is trying to make up for it, and they're going to try to outscore you, and they're going to do everything they can to do that. So I think that's really the takeaway for sure.
Yeah, and I'm looking at for some reason the stats aren't loading for this game. I'm looking at it and I go, man, San Francisco is they're so hurt on offense. You're down to your 4th or 5th string running back. Trent Williams not in this game. This is I guess you could speak for Niners fans on this one. This is hey, we're gonna pack it in and let's get healthy next season and make another run. Some of the Niners, I guess there was enough questions about the Niners where people they had to come out and make a statement that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch were coming back. What changes would you like to see with this 49ers team?
I think with the Niners, we talk about, oh, well, if, with these guys are out and these guys are out and these superstars are out, well, again, you're not going to have all these superstars in. We have to, I think Kyle Shanahan needs to change his approach to some of his schemes and some of his play calling to best benefit what's out there. I think we need to pick up some key things in the offense in the off season because again our team's older, man. These guys are hurt. A lot of these guys, their prime is gone, and we need to start thinking about getting guys in here and getting them in the offense early and trying to build around that and not just rely on, our Debos, our Kittles, Christian McCaffreys, because these guys, again, they're older. We're running out. We got to figure out how the Brock Purdy situation, is he worth the money that, we thought he was going to be worth last year? So if you look at this season, he's not that. I think we should, figure out a way to pay him, but I don't know if it's going to be as much. And then it comes down to how we're holding out for money like Ayuk did. And then here we go again. But I think money management is going to be the big thing. But I think off-season pickups is what we have to do, and change some of our play calling and scheming around with with Shanahan's typical offense.
I was gonna ask that. I was gonna ask, is this the year that you back up the Brinks truck for Brock Purdy, or I would imagine that the issue of the franchise tag is going to be brought up, which is going to probably put Brock Purdy in the range of a $40 million fully guaranteed 1-year contract with the Niners. And I think they treat it like a prove it deal for Brock Purdy, because he went from, hey, last year he was fourth in the MVP voting, to, hey, this year it looks completely different. But the other case can be made. Yeah, you had a ton of injuries. I mean, and this wasn't just like, oh, hey, it's one guy going down or one or two guys going down. This was 3, 4, at times 5 of your main guys to make this going out, and not just going out for 1 or 2 games, but extended periods of time during the season. And San Francisco, to me, kind of fell into the trap that I think Carolina did, where Christian McCaffrey was their entire offense. And that can't happen. That, I get it. Yeah, you had Ayuk and Kittle and Debo. And Kittle and Debo have stepped up their game this year. They have played some really good games.
Well, Kittle has. Debo Samuel, he wants to, again, a few weeks ago, he wants to come out and be like, oh, give me the ball. And the next game, sure, we hit him in the numbers a few times and he can't catch a thing. So it's like, that's the thing. It's like, okay, if we really want to step this up, then let's step this up. But man, guys are talking and nothing, even when Brock's playing great, he can't make everything happen. No. And I think, we should have been looking at guys, like Parcells, like Juwan Jennings, these guys who are younger, who we can get, start working in the rotation better than trying to, go to, the older vets all the time. And everyone's going to see that.
Pearsall's been an improvement. I will say this. I think Pearsall and Juwan Jennings have had some good moments, and Pearsall, especially last week, in that game where he had some good moments. And I think had he not had what happened to him before the season happened, he probably would have ended up being, hey, Ayuk goes down. That's fine. We got Pearsall. Mm-hmm. And we're just now starting to see it from him, but it's a little bit too little too late. But I will say this. I'll give the Niners this. With everything that happened to them, for them to be in the playoff conversation, I get this kind of says something about the division. For them to be in the playoff conversation up until maybe 2 weeks ago was pretty impressive. And I feel like give them an offseason, give them a chance to do exactly what you said they were going to do, and San Francisco is going to be back. San Francisco is definitely going to be back.
It keeps up. I saw a stat that I didn't realize, that it's either we hit the NFC Championship game, or we miss the playoffs completely. Those are the two options that the 49ers have. We either make it to the NFC Championship, or we don't make the playoffs at all. So, it is that, I guess.
Hey, look, there's a bright side to it. To me, it's a glass half full approach, where you qualified. Hey, we're going to have a pretty good chance going to the Super Bowl. But that'll do it for the game reactions for Week 17. Guys, again, thank y'all for tuning in. Hey, be sure to sound off in the chat. Like, share, and subscribe. Get your notifications on for YouTube. Let us know on Twitch. Again, we want to hit that 50 subscriber mark. We're at 26 right now. 24 more to go. So go subscribe on Twitch. And then, of course, guys, Facebook, all that stuff. Let people know. Like, share, subscribe. Get the word out. Usually we're on Tuesday nights. But hey, you know what? New Year's Eve was last night. We had to get a little. No, we didn't. We stayed home and tried not to get sick. But guys, definitely catch us on Tuesday nights. But definitely like, share, and subscribe. And line up that chat board, guys. We want to hear from y'all. Now it's time for 3 up and 3 down this week. This is where we're going to list, hey, some guys that definitely need to be highlighted for both good and bad things. First up on the up list, it had to be Joe Burrow. It had to be Joe Burrow. He didn't just will his team in this game. He has willed this team this entire season.
Yeah, I don't think, again, I think we'll talk about it, here in a minute too. But man, there's no, without Joe Burrow, we're not even talking. Cincinnati's not even close to a conversation. They're not even in it.
Jamar Chase too. Yeah.
Yeah, but without that, I think if it doesn't happen again, the way they started this season, there's not a shot that I thought we'd be, that we're tempting even the thought of them making the playoffs now. But man, yeah, again, this game shows that like when you let excellent quarterbacks do their thing, man, they can make it happen.
Yeah, and I'm looking at Burrow's 4,600 yards, closest to 5,000. He's got a ton of touchdowns, man. 42 touchdowns, only 8 interceptions, and he has just been on fire. Like again, if the Bengals were like a 9-10 win team, we're talking about Joe Burrow like running away with the MVP. And I still think if he gets into the playoffs, he's got to be the front runner for the MVP because there's not really anyone close. I mean, Jared Goff, yes, but as terms of what he has done for this team and being what those letters mean, the only person I think that could come close to Joe Burrow is Saquon Barkley. And he proved it again in this Broncos game against a very young, a very hungry, a very well coached Denver Broncos team, and he just willed that team to victory. But we'll see, and definitely see if they get in. They're not a team I'd want to play in the playoffs. Next up, Baker Mayfield in probably what was the best game I've ever seen Baker play. 27 to 32, 359 yards, 5 touchdowns, and 153 rating. Yeah, I see you, Andy. 153 rating. Boy, Baker just lit it up this week.
I mean, talk about a guy who is, you know, who's fighting for his life to try to make this team hit the playoffs. He he was hoping everything, everything went down that he could make happen, and he got the win, and especially Atlanta taking that loss to the Commanders. I mean, he was showing that, hey, I want to make this playoff, and I think with that kind of performance, it's going to get him there. Especially if he keeps it up, even keeps half that up against a pretty poor Saints team this week. But yeah, I think Baker Mayfield just had to talk about a game of a lifetime.
Yeah. We talk about how Joe Burrow just has willed his team into success. Baker's done the same thing. Because you remember, at one point, he did not have Mike Evans or Chris Godwin. They got Evans back, but at one point, he was without most of his playmakers. I will say this. Baker Mayfield, one thing that really helped Baker Mayfield in this game, and especially in the last 2 games, I know they kind of had laid an egg against the Cowboys, but in the last 2 games, Bucky Irving has really stepped up as a rookie running back and just really kind of opened things up for Baker Mayfield because he is a threat out of the backfield. And that opens things up in the passing game for Baker. So it allowed him to really just go for it in this game. And now you got the Bucks in the driver's seat, and it's looking like they're going to end up with the NFC South title again. But Baker's been worth every penny. All right, this is probably the first top of the mountain I'm a little reluctant to do. It's deserved, but it's a little reluctant, and I only say that because it comes at my expense. This week's top of the mountain coming back from Christmas, the one and only Andrew Martinez. He won our fantasy league. He won the battle of the co-hosts. As far as the fantasy game went. I'm not going to lie, Andy. This was probably the most stressful 5 days I had in my life.
I mean, talk about a wild championship game. At least, for me, it was, going into your game, started your games, especially with Houston. Unfortunately, Houston didn't have a great game,
No,
so
they
that
did not.
that helped me early off. Don't get me wrong, combined, my running backs got 2.10 points. So my Saturday into Sunday was looking terrified. Thank God for Baker Mayfield. Man, single-handedly carried this team for me, and what a wild ride that was for sure.
Dude, I'm kicking myself because I think it's the day, that's Saturday, I picked up Bo Nix and McMillan, and I was like, okay, I'm looking at the matchups, and I'm like, crap. I don't know if McMillan was just a rookie performance but boy, he went on. I was like, if I'd have swapped out either one of those guys, I think I would have won. And that's the hard part about fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
But congrats, Andy, to be the league
Thank you.
champion. First year in the league too. He came in and won the league, replacing someone else that opted out for the year, but came in first try. Okay, all right, Andy. All right, but this week's top of the mountain goes to our co-host Andy Martinez. Well, we went 3 up. We're gonna go 3 down, and first up on the down list, Kyler Murray. Boy, that was a rough game, and that was a game that they needed. They needed Hunter saying beginner's luck.
Hey,
I don't
I'll
know,
take
Andy,
it.
Andy,
I'll
yeah,
take it.
yeah, take it. I don't know. Andy made some savvy moves this offseason or during this fantasy season. But Kyler Murray, he had a down game. I know the numbers, aside from the take out the interceptions, the numbers don't look bad, but those interceptions were bad on Kyler Murray's part.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't his best game for sure. Kind of, I don't know if it was just the what it was for him, trying to make it happen, or what that mindset was. But yeah, it definitely wasn't a great game for Kyler looking out there. When hopes may still be alive, especially playing upset. But yeah, it didn't look great for him.
For me, and I'm going to look up his season numbers real quick, but just on the eye test for me, and the fact that he hasn't really been jumping off the page that I thought I thought he would. But
I mean, he's 17 touchdowns, 11 interceptions.
Yeah, that and the fact that he just, I don't know, something seems off between him and Marvin Harrison Jr. Like, you would think, as talented as Kyler Murray has been sometimes, a guy like Marvin Harrison could step in and really do some dynamic things with Kyler. And they have at certain points this season, but I heard it again. I heard it put perfectly during the game. Kyler's very much a, to use a wrestling term, call it in the ring type of guy. Marvin Harrison very much is a, hey, we're going to plan everything out in the back type of guy. And that's kind of where the disconnect is. And I have not seen Marvin Harrison be as dynamic this year as you thought he would be. And a lot of that to me is because he just does not have that connection with his QB.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think whatever that is, like, either hopefully that can get fixed, or man, it's just not going to be looking good.
He's only got 800. Now, don't get me wrong. Kyler's got 17 touchdowns. 7 of them have gone to Harrison. And he's got 822 yards on the season, averaging 14 a catch. But if you just look at the game, if you just watched any Arizona game, especially in that first one where he didn't go to Marvin Harrison at all, they just looked off. So, but Kyler Murray is on the down list for this week. Also on the down list, the Seattle Seahawks. Boy, how do you manage 6 points against the Chicago freaking Bears? That was sad. That was
I mean, yeah, I mean that's the luckily it happened on the last Thursday game. We didn't start the season with this kind of 95% of the Thursday games have been pretty exciting, great divisional matchups, to start off the thing. This is, I mean, talk about just a bad game. Oh, on all fronts for both teams. For Amazon's going like, why do you hate us? But yeah, I think God, that was just a bad game for everything involved.
Well, and it's just, to me, it's kind of been the tale of this Seattle season.
Mm-hmm.
When you get good Seattle, hey, Seattle can be fun to watch. But boy, when bad Seattle shows up, they show up, and they have showed up these last few weeks. Mm-hmm. And it has cost Seattle, especially this is the worst time for it to happen, because the NFC West has been very close. I mean, all 4 teams in that division at some point have been in first place. And that was just, they made a lot of mistakes that you shouldn't have been making. Don't get me wrong. This was more about Seattle than it was Chicago, although the dysfunction in Chicago was on full display in that game. You thought Eberflus had some bad clock management on Thanksgiving. Thomas Brown was not much better. And you could tell this team is waiting for a new head coach. And I would imagine Caleb Williams is just dying for this season to be over. Especially when you got shots of him just laying down in agony on the bench a couple weeks ago. But yeah, this is more about the Seahawks. I just, to me, I think you've reached your limit with Geno Smith. I really do. Don't get me wrong, Jackson Smith-Njigba, DK Metcalf, Kenneth Walker, Charbonnet have all had great moments this season. Geno's had some good games, but I think you have gotten as far as you can get with Geno Smith. The problem is you're in a point where you can't really go out and get a quarterback. So you're stuck. You're in that purgatory unless you want to start giving up picks again. You're in that purgatory, and Seattle might be stuck in this position for a while, especially if the division gets better.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, Seattle's got some, lots of thinking to do during the offseason to what kind of moves they can make to help with that. But yeah, I think Geno Smith, we've really shown, like, again, when he's great, but when he's not, he is not.
I will say this. I think Mike McDonald has done a decent job as a first-year head coach. I think he's done an okay job. You've got Seattle at second place, winning season. And with the Rams announcing today that they are starting Jimmy Garoppolo, you're probably going to have a double-digit win season in your first year. So not bad. But there's some stuff that they got to do in this offseason to get better. And I think you might have to take a look at Geno Smith because I believe his contract is coming due soon. I don't know if it's this coming year or the year after that. But there is a decision about Geno Smith that I think you have to make soon. This one's going to hurt. This one's going to hurt bad. Because this week's Factory of Sadness could not have been any more clear. And for it to happen on Christmas hurt even worse. My Houston Texans are this week's Factory of Sadness. And I'm not going to lie, these last couple weeks, the season, honestly, to me, has been building up to this. And this is what I feared. If you go back to August when we were talking about the Texans, what I feared happened is happening. Where this team, don't get me wrong, injuries and stuff have played a part, but this team got so much hype. This team got so much love, and they brought in all these pieces, and Bobby Slowick has done exactly what I thought he was going to do this year, make it way too complicated and be way too stubborn to change, and it has shown up hard in this last month.
Yeah, I mean, for these for the 3 games, within the 11 days, it's just, you could tell that they felt it, unfortunately. Again, going, the loss against the Chiefs, loss against the Ravens. I mean, especially that loss against the Ravens on Christmas was just a brutal showing out there. And yeah, I think, this team is, you could tell they're tired. They're beat up. They're, they got to figure something out, as they get ready, ready for the playoffs. They got to figure it out because these teams aren't going to, aren't taking any. They don't have any light roads, no matter who pops in there against them.
And my fear is that okay, they'll go beat the Titans. They can go and beat unless they rest everyone. I don't think they're going to rest everyone, at least to start the game. They'll go and beat the Titans. Now that they'll go and get some stuff working with Deontay Johnson, who just joined the team with the Tank Dell injury, which I'm not going to lie, that was pretty bad. That was Teddy Bridgewater bad.
That's brutal.
For anyone that wants to hate on CJ for crying, dude, that dude cares. Man, he cares. He doesn't just care about the game. He cares about his teammate. And Tank Dell's his best friend. So if you want to hate on CJ for crying, go touch grass. But, no, like, my fear is that they win against the Titans and finish 10-7. They win a play. They get the Steelers, who are reeling, and they win against them and say, hey, we got exactly where we were going to be, where we got to last year. Let's run it back. Let's keep Bobby Slowick when he clearly needs to go. Him and Chris Strasser, the offensive line coach, they need to go. There needs to be decisions made about Laramie Tunsil, who is that's the problem. I think one of the big problems with this team, obviously the interior offensive line needs to be completely rebuilt. But they got these guys like Laramie Tunsil and Titus Howard, who were Bill O'Brien draft picks, and they were more built for this Patriots style of offensive line blocking, not the physical type of offensive line blocking that you see in San Francisco. And they invested like $188 million into this offensive line for them to just be as soft as you can be. I think they bring back Diggs, which I don't think would be a bad thing. If they bring him back on a 1-year prove-it deal and let him, not have to worry about getting him and Tank and Joe Mixon and Dalton Schultz the ball. I think, you bring it back, you bring Diggs back kind of on a 1-year prove-it deal, and then figure it out in the year you got to sign CJ. But I think if they run it back next year with Diggs, they could get something out of it. But they got to fix this offensive line in a hurry because there's no reason CJ should have that type of game against the Ravens, who have one of the worst pass defenses in the league, unless his offensive line has let him down time and time and time again, and he's in his head, which he's clearly shown. So, yeah. But that'll do it for 3 Up, 3 Down, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in. Again, want to take this time, to say thank you to our sponsors, the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. If you guys need any new tech repair, or get tech repaired, go hit up Gabe at the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. And we are going to start looking for sponsors for the 2025 season. Want to open up sponsorship. I will have more news about that later. We are looking for sponsors to join the Phone Medic to get featured here on the show, whether you want to sponsor a segment or the entire show itself. I will be putting out the information to get in contact with myself as we get, probably closer to the end of the season. Speaking of segments, it is now time for Buy or Sell. Guys, this is where you can really sound off in the chat as well. We're going to throw some takes out. Andy and I are going to let it know that we are Mike fell off. Hang on a second, guys. Gotta love having a makeshift studio. But we are going to, throw some takes out, let you guys know whether or not we are buying or selling. Can y'all hear me fine right now?
Can hear you for sure.
Let you guys know whether or not we are buying or selling the take. So the first one on buy or sell. Buy or sell, I'll let you start off with this one, Andy. The Steelers are not playoff ready.
Man, with the turnout that they've had, I'm gonna buy that, man. I just don't know if they are coming off of 3 losses, the way they have. It's just I don't know if they're ready for this playoffs. They made it. They've kept it in there, but I just don't know if they're ready. I don't think they are. I don't think they're ready for what's going to happen in these playoffs with these teams for sure.
Is this a Russell Wilson problem, or is it this team needs more weapons for him type of problem?
I think the team probably needs more weapons. I think, especially after the seasons that we saw with Russ coming into this, I probably would have said, it was a Russell Wilson problem. But I think, again, the turnaround he's had with this team, they've really felt, they've really felt it, and it's done pretty well. I think that, he's not, definitely not solely the problem for sure. I think, some weapons would help that, and and that defense, trying to get out there more, I think would help also.
Yeah, I'm going to buy it, and for exactly a lot of the same reasons you said. I think Arthur Smith coming in as offensive coordinator has really helped out and really shown us, hey, there's still some juice left with Russell Wilson, especially in the way that they've used him, but they need wide receivers. Freiermuth is a good tight end. Harris is a good running back, but they need threats through the air because I'm sorry, I'm really not sold on George Pickens and any of the other guys that they got. They don't have that dominant wide receiver who can just take over a game, like a Nico Collins, like an AJ Brown. They don't have that. That's a CeeDee Lamb at times. They just don't have that type of receiver in Pittsburgh and the guy to go with him. I think if they had somebody to pair with George Pickens, you get a lot more damage. That's not Pat Freiermuth or Najee Harris. You get a lot more dangerous team. But right now, this team is not playoff ready. No, I think if they go to Houston, I could very much see them getting beat by Houston in a battle of, hey, these are the two worst playoff teams on the AFC side. Buy or sell the Vikings? Sure, I think we've asked this before, but it's more apparent now, especially with the game coming up on Sunday. The Vikings should stick with Sam Darnold after this season.
I mean, I buy it. I think how do you not? For him to come in, again, everyone, from any kind of reports I've seen, everyone likes him. Everyone was talking all year. Oh, when does he become the pumpkin? When he's going that? And man, he's going to take this team. He's going to take this team to the ball, and be the prettiest girl at the ball right now. I know he has a big challenge ahead of him. This Sunday, but man, who's expecting that from his previous performances to coming into this season and taking this team to 14-2? Man, I think you have to. I think you have to keep him. It'd be wild. I know you have a young quarterback who got hurt, and here's what's happening, and but it's hard to say this guy's going to lead you to the playoffs and potentially lead you to a Super Bowl win. And it's just it's crazy not to, especially if they go deep into the playoffs.
I may have to reframe this question because I'm going to buy Sam Darnold should stick with the Vikings. Because here's the thing. I think Kevin O'Connell is the guy who knows how to get the best out of him. He's definitely gotten the best out of him out of any coach that he has had. And I think he has definitely thrived, especially with the weapons that he has. What I think, and the Vikings should do everything they can to keep him. And I've seen a couple things today. Football Forever was posting, hey, there's a chance that the Vikings could end up trading their first round pick from this year, JJ McCarthy, to get some more help for Sam Darnold, or in order to keep Sam Darnold. But I think Sam Darnold should stick with the Vikings because he runs the risk of a team throwing a ton of money at him, and he ends up going back to the Sam Darnold we saw in New York. So I think for Sam Darnold's, especially if they get the number one seed this year, Sam Darnold's best bet is to stick with the Vikings. And because that's where he's going to thrive, and he has grown so much in that system, and Kevin O'Connell seems to be the coach that has gotten the absolute best out of him. Mm-hmm. We've talked about this throughout the show, but now it's time to lay it on the table. Buy or sell. This one's yours. Joe Burrow should be in the MVP talks.
I mean, I'm buying it. I think he should be. Again, if he makes it, even if he doesn't make it into the playoffs, this should be seen as the most valuable person. And I mean, number one in yards, number one in touchdowns. It's not about the most valuable person on a good team. It's the most valuable person and most valuable player. And I mean, he has been that. He's showing that. Don't be wrong. Other Josh Allen, in there, Saquon in there, but they're not having to overcome such a deficit that Joe Burrow has. So I think even if he doesn't get into the playoffs, man, he's definitely in that conversation because of all the work he's put in and shown that, again, we talked about earlier, there are some of these games that are not his fault. He put up huge numbers and just that defense, laid it on there, but he was still trying to carry that team, to a win. So I think he's still in that conversation.
You ready for the swerve?
Sure.
He should be in the MVP talks, but I'm going to sell that he will actually be because the Bengals are not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
And that's kind of been the criteria for what people are selecting with the MVP, how these voters are voting for the MVP. Now, that does not mean he won't be an offensive player of the year. I very much think the MVP could go to like Saquon Barkley. Man, it might be my MVP. It's between Burrow. It's close between Burrow and Saquon Barkley for the MVP. Jathan, Detroit's defense can't. Yeah, and we'll get to more on that. Thank you for tuning in, Jay Fine. We'll get to more on that when we get to game previews because there's a lot I want to talk about as far as that game. But as far as Joe Burrow and the MVP, Joe Burrow, yeah, don't get me wrong. If they make the playoffs, I think Joe Burrow should be your MVP, and Saquon's probably going to end up being Offensive Player of the Year, as much as I want him to be the MVP.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like Joe Burrow is going to be flip flopped, especially if Saquon gets them far. I feel like Joe Burrow, they're going to be like, hey, let's recognize Joe Burrow on a team that didn't make the playoffs as your Offensive Player of the Year, but let's give the MVP to Saquon. So I am selling. I think he should be, but I'm selling that he will be in the MVP talks. This one's interesting, though. This one's going to bring up some conversation. Jim Harbaugh, Coach of the Year, buy or sell? I'll start with this one. I'm going to sell. As good as Harbaugh has done with the Chargers, as much of a turnaround as it has been since they got rid of Brandon Staley, to me, Jim Harbaugh is not the Coach of the Year. It's got to be Kevin O'Connell. With what he has done and how far he has brought Sam Darnold. I mean, this is the best year I've ever seen out of Sam Darnold. This is the Sam Darnold that was drafted, that everyone thought we were getting when he was drafted number 2. And Sam Darnold is in the MVP conversation. How could he not be? You know, you throw for 377 yards the other night, and just some of the games he has put together under Kevin O'Connell. To me, he's the Coach of the Year for the simple fact that he took something out of the garbage can, shined it up, and made it look like a diamond. Harbaugh's done a great job, but I feel like he is stuck to some things that weren't working too many times this year, and it's bit him in the butt.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely a sell for him, Coach of the Year. But man, it really shows how good of a coach Harbaugh really is, though, because you see Harbaugh, any organization that he goes to, whether it's Stanford, whether it's Michigan, the 49ers, he turns a team that is, not a good team. He turns that team around to being being successful very quickly. But yeah, I agree. I'm not sure I'd put him as Coach of the Year. There, it's hard to make a case against everything that you said, and but man, it definitely does show that what kind of coach, how good of a coach he is, and how he can turn it around. Even if they don't get the Super Bowl, how he could turn this Chargers team around and show what they can do in such a short time.
Jay Fine also brings up a good point too. I think a good coach for Coach of the Year kind of shows you how good their staff is. And Brian Flores has brought himself back into the spotlight with how well he has coached this defense. And this defense is scary. Don't get me wrong. I get, the zero blitz and everything is a signature of the Brian Flores defense, and he executes it so well that Brian Flores has brought himself back into being a head coach candidate, and a lot of that has to do with Kevin O'Connell. But if I'm handing out awards right now, for me, it's got to be Kevin O'Connell for Coach of the Year. That'll do it for buy or sell. Again, guys, go like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We are usually on Tuesdays at 8:30. New Year's Eve had us a little preempted, but hey, you know what? That's fine. But definitely go like, share, and subscribe. Go follow us on Spotify, where we will have the show, the audio version of the show, on the next day. So if you want to listen to it while you're working out, driving around, driving to work, or anything like that, you can go follow us on Spotify and catch it there as well. And we're going to get into our game previews, guys. The lines are brought to you by ESPN Bet. And we open up on Saturday. Again, we were talking about both of these teams heavily throughout the show, and now it's time to put some rubber to the road. Cincinnati at Pittsburgh opens up as a 1.5 favorite, with the over-under being 48.5. This is weird. I don't want to say weird, but it's telling that an 8-8 team is a favorite on the road against a 10-win team.
Yeah, I think it really shows you how, like we talked about, how Joe Burrow is really carrying this team and how poorly the Steelers have looked down the stretch. And I think that, them being the favorite, I'm not surprised. Again, if they can win, then, they've done their part in trying to get in the playoffs. Everything else is out of their hands. But yeah, I think, going into Pittsburgh's a tough one, but man, I think they have all the momentum right now with them, and Joe Burrow, going to help carry that team to try to get that win to get them in that playoff spot.
I think the key here is going to be does this Pittsburgh defense get home against Cincinnati? Does this Pittsburgh defense get to Joe Burrow the way that the Broncos got to him last week? And if that's the case, I mean, Joe Burrow's great, but he can only take so much. And they got to respond after getting, kind of skull drugged by the Chiefs on Christmas Day. But there's just something about this Bengals team that you cannot ignore. And of course, it's Big Joe Burrow. This is going to be a game where I think they're going to be playing lights out. Both these teams have a lot to play for. Since he's got to stay alive, and Pittsburgh needs this win in order to keep their hopes alive in the division. And even to keep their hopes alive in the playoffs at all. Because if they fall out, well, no, they clinched. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Pittsburgh's clinched. So they needed to kind of just keep some momentum going versus whoever they travel to go play if they don't win the division, because they're going to need it. They got some tough teams they could end up playing on the road in the playoffs. But I think it's safe to say you and I both got the Bengals in this game.
Yeah, I think with all the momentum they have, I just don't. I just see them coming and playing out lights out. And if you're trying to outshoot, Joe Burrow right now, it's not looking good for you.
No, I don't think it is. And Russell Wilson's not the type of guy that I think is going to win a shootout with Joe Burrow, especially with the weapons that Burrow has. All it takes is a couple big passes to Higgins and Chase, and they're rocking and rolling. Now, got to watch the kicking game because Cade York hasn't been consistent this year. Could come down to a couple of those. Boswell's missed a couple. Kicking's been weird in the NFL this year. Boswell's missed a couple, but York hasn't always been that reliable. So if it comes down to a field goal, that could upset things. This one, New Orleans 5-11, which the wheels have completely come off in the Bayou or in New Orleans. Going to Tampa. Tampa's 13.5-point favorites. Some of the spreads this weekend, if you look at the ticker, some of the spreads this weekend are looking like mid-September college football spreads. But 13.5-point favorites. Tampa Bay winning in. You've got the division, locked everything up. Time to get ready for the playoffs. Baker Mayfield, I have a feeling he could feast in this game.
Yeah, I think it's going to show another. I think we're going to see another dominant performance from Baker Mayfield, trying to make sure they cinch. If they're going to get enough ahead of the lead, if to where nothing can bad happen. If they decide to take out starters, because again they need to win. They need to win this to get that playoff spot secured up. But I mean, I have a feeling they're going to go lights out, and especially in that first half, and put as many points on that scoreboard as they possibly can.
Yeah, and then I think once they get ahead, if they know this game is in hand, especially because it's winning in, if they get ahead on the scoreboard, especially maybe by the first half, they start resting starters. They start getting guys some rest. They start letting guys heal up because they are playing a 12-win team in the wild card, hosting a 12-win team the very next week. So yeah, I think I both it's going to be a walk-off for the Bucs. They're going to end up absolutely getting this taken care of. Elsewhere in the NFC South, Atlanta also vying for the division crown and playing, not one of a team that record-wise isn't that impressive. But you got to be wary of Carolina because they could show up at the most, at any time. They have shown that this season. Atlanta's a team I feel like they could do it against. They are 7.5-point favorites. Atlanta needs a win and a Tampa Bay loss to get the division and get in. Tampa and Atlanta are the only two teams really still alive that have not clinched anything in the NFC.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to. Again, it comes down to if Tampa, get it. Obviously, if Tampa wins, do they play at the same time?
Yes, they do.
We both play at noon, right? Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, it's going to be a real competitive game. You're hoping that you can go in there. Atlanta's is going to come in there, and hopefully Bryce Young doesn't have a pop off game like he's kind of had those throughout the year. Hopefully Atlanta can hold that off from happening, and pray that New Orleans pulls out a miracle. But yeah, I just don't. I don't feel like Carolina has it all in there, especially this kind of game. Again, they could play upset for Atlanta and just beat them outright. But I think Atlanta's probably gonna take this out.
I have a feeling this could be like one of those games where it's a showcase game for Michael Penix,
Mm-hmm.
and Tampa's so far ahead that they're like, okay, we're not winning this, so they're gonna start pulling guys on their own. I don't know. These are two games that could be very interesting to watch. Going on down the stretch, but I think you and I both agree it's going to be the Falcons in this game. So, now when I put this together, the Rams had not clinched. They clinched, and now they're resting everybody. But Seattle 6.5-point favorites goes to Los Angeles, who is starting Jimmy Garoppolo, who will be hosting a playoff game. One against one of those probably 12 win NFC wildcard teams. But over under 38.5. Los Angeles has clinched the division in a weird NFC West division this year. Not really much to look forward after. Maybe some improvement from Seattle, get them to a 10-win season. But this could be like an audition game for Jimmy Garoppolo, wouldn't you think?
It could be, still showing out there, hey, that he has something. If teams are looking for, a solid quarterback who could still make plays happen, I think it's a good, shot for him. Again, after the embarrassing loss against, even they won, that showing against Chicago, I think even
we all
second
lost
string. Huh? Yeah,
we
all
all
lost. Yeah, I think even a secondary Rams team is going to play better than a Seattle team right now if they show up like they did on Thursday, because that was pretty embarrassing. But yeah, I mean, again, a game that means nothing to nobody. Maybe a seed. If Seattle wins, it's probably changes the seeding a little bit. I think that's about the only thing is if Seattle wins, it changes the seeding of the NFC side. But yeah, I think it. I don't see a whole lot of good performance coming out of this game for Seattle, and I think again, like I said, it could be a good shot for Garoppolo to show that hey, I could still be a starting quarterback somewhere out in this league.
It is calamity in my studio. I almost knocked over my water. Yeah, no, I think. Here's the thing. I think Seattle wants to go out on a good note, and going out with a 10-7 year, and a year that's been up and down with Los Angeles probably resting their starters. It's safe bet. I'm going to go with Seattle. I know the Rams probably depth wise may have a better team than Seattle, but Seattle's going to be playing their guys, and I think they're going to be playing with something to prove to end this season on a high note, saying, "Hey, we're a 10-win team." And we could get better with an off season. We're going to show you guys, hey, this is who we can be. And don't die on me, Andy. We're going to show you guys, this is who we can be. And watch out next season. Moving on from that one, we go to the main event. Probably, I would say, the biggest regular season game that I have ever seen in NFL, and possibly in NFL history. I believe they said it's the first 12-plus win meeting of 12-plus win teams in the NFL this late in the season. But Minnesota going to Detroit. Both teams are 14-2. Detroit is 3-point favorites. The winner of this game gets the number 1 seed in the NFC North Championship, hosting and home field advantage, obviously with that number 1 seed, home field advantage throughout the playoffs. And both of these places are very, very hard to play in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It'll be the first time a 14-win team is a wild card,
which is nuts. That is absolutely crazy.
How scary is this division that 3 teams are making this?
How scary is this conference that your 7 seed is going to be a 12-win team probably.
Yeah.
Your 7 seed.
Yeah.
And a 7 seed that, if we're being honest, depending on who wins this game, a 7 seed that could end up upsetting the number 2 seed. Like, or even the number 1 seed, should they make it. To me, the big matchup, the big factor in this game, how does Detroit's defense hold up with it being so banged up? Because you got to stop Jefferson, you got to stop Addison, you got to stop Aaron Jones, you got to stop T.J. Hawkinson. That's a lot.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's kind of been Detroit's style right now is, we'll go blow for blow, and that defense, they've kind of done it, time and in these last few games of, our defense makes one or two stops in the most critical moments, and that's all, that's kind of what they need to stay ahead and get ahead and win these games. But they're obviously they know they're hurt. They know they're hurt on defense, and they're taking it. But that offense is again making up for it. They're going blow for blow with all these teams, and hoping that defense, late in the game can make a stop when they need to cinch it for them. I mean, absolutely. Detroit Ford Field is going to be a wild play Sunday night. I mean, if this is. We knew it that this was going to be the Sunday night game. There was no question about it. Even if Detroit had lost, against San Francisco, this was going to be the Sunday night game. This means so much to what's going to happen, and the seeding, and it's going to be a wild game, and both teams are going to come out just firing all they have at each other. They're going to give it everything they have, and these teams it's going to be an awesome game.
Yeah, no, I think it's going to be a great game. And I think the thing that it's going to come down to is how many stops, it's like you said, can Detroit make these key stops? And I think Detroit could get it. I think if Detroit gets it into a shootout, maybe that's where I don't trust Sam Darnold as much, because I haven't really seen Sam Darnold shoot out as much. But I don't think that Minnesota's defense is going to let them get there. We have had a game where Jared Goff has thrown 5 interceptions this year. And you got to believe Minnesota is studying that game. Let's say Minnesota gets a 3 and out. Can Detroit keep it up? It's going to be questions like that are going to have to be answered throughout this game. And we're getting to that point in the season or in the year where the old cliche comes up, hey, defense wins championships. And I think Minnesota, if Detroit still had most of their guys, say if Aiden Hutchinson had not gotten hurt, then this is probably going to be, I probably lean more Detroit. But this defense, and Brian Flores has this defense so well coached that I just feel like, Detroit's going to have some great plays on them. But Brian Flores can adjust. And the way that he disguises his blitzes and the way that he disguises his coverages has been genius this year. It always has been. But I just see this defense getting a lot more stops against Detroit than I do Detroit making big plays against them. They have to play the possession game.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. I mean, it's going to come down to, a wild offense against a strong defense, and it's going to be it's hard to say, Again, I think, for me, I think I'm on that Dan Campbell, we're running through the walls. We're running through walls, and we're going to, take everyone down with us as we see them. And it's hard to predict what could happen in this game. You can't count them out, either team.
No, you can't. But there's the thing too, and again, that's what this is going to hinge on. Is can Minnesota make these risks that Dan Campbell takes hurt? Can he make these going forward on every 4th down imaginable? How much can they make those hurt? Because this Minnesota defense has what it takes to stop those and get the ball back. And Detroit, quite frankly, right now does not have the defense to do so. To make Minnesota, to cover for some of those mistakes. And honestly, if Minnesota takes advantage of some of those early, then this could get out of hand. This could get away from them. So we'll see. And again, with so much on the line, this is gonna be huge. I know this. I'm gonna have my popcorn ready on Sunday night for this one. You ready to unveil our picks for the big game? This is like a regular season game that almost has like a Super Bowl feel to it. This is big. This is like
this is it.
the SD
This could get
championship in week 18. I'm ready for it. Yeah, Jefferson. Yeah, especially Jefferson too. Yeah, Minnesota's hungry, and I never thought I'd be talking about Minnesota as the number 1 seed when we previewed this. In fact, let me look. I have my my standings right here. I didn't think Minnesota was really going to be much of a threat. In fact, I had them at 8 and 9. So that kind of shows you. Just to go ahead and eat my own shoe, I didn't think, especially after JJ McCarthy went down and them getting Sam Darnold, pretty reasonable to pick him at that.
Yeah.
But yeah, eating my own words on that one too. In fact, I looked at my predictions and
oof, that's gonna be a fun one to go back and look at.
How about not? let's not do that. I mean, some of them were close. I had some good ones, but I got the Vikings. You got the Lions.
I do, man.
This was a hard pick, and I'm really surprised. Basically, so what's funny is, I'll let you guys in on a little bit of betting info. When you see that -3, when you see a field goal favorite for the home team, that's basically Vegas giving them a little bit of a home field advantage and saying if this was on a neutral field, this would be even. And that's exactly what this feels like. And I think it might be even in Detroit. So I couldn't imagine what the betting is going to be on this game. It's going to be wild.
It's going to be a wild game, and I'm so pumped for it.
So speaking of betting, it is time for the extra picks. We do this via Prize Picks. And if you guys, I want to let you know about a promo that's going on right now on Prize Picks. If you download the Prize Picks app and sign up, there is an opt-in promo where you guys get a free $25 lineup. And right now, I utilized it. These are 3 of the 5 picks that I have to do a free $25 bonus bet lineup that might net me might let me $500. It'd be nice if it was 25. I'm not going to go on that much, but it might net me $500 on a free $25 promo. So go sign up for the Prize Picks now. Opt in, get your free $25 lineup for this weekend. And it doesn't have to just be NFL. It could be college football. It could be the NBA. It could be hockey. Whatever you got, whatever you're into, it could be any one of those. But go pick up your free $25 lineup promo right now over at Prize Picks for the extra picks. We got Jay Fine weighing in. Yeah, I mean, Minnesota's gone through a lot this offseason. But first up on the extra picks, Aiden O'Connell, Las Vegas. I got him under 235.5 passing yards. I mean, it just has not worked for the Raiders this year. My poor son, he's kind of gone through it. My other one's a Jaguars fan, so not as much as he has. But the Raiders are playing the Chargers, who do have some stuff to play for seeding-wise. And the defense has played well, but I've got Aiden O'Connell under 235 passing yards.
Yeah, seems solid.
So the other one, Bucky Irving, who has come on as of late with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, over 85.5 rushing yards. New Orleans defense, they have not played as well. New Orleans is ready to pack it in this season. Safe bet for Bucky Irving, over 85.5 rushing yards.
Yeah.
There you go. Win some money. The other one, too, the Commanders are playing Dallas. I will actually be in attendance for that game, working with the NFL on Fox. Look for me if I am on the field running around on the sidelines. But I will be at this game. Terry McLaurin over 66.5 rushing yards against a beat up Dallas defense. But those are 3 of my 5 picks that I've got on this free $25 lineup. Do it by January 5th. That's the deadline to get your free lineup in. But that'll do it for us tonight on the first extra point of the new year. Happy New Year, guys. Thank you to all who joined us tonight on the extra point. Again, want to say thank you to our sponsors, the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock. For all your tech repair needs, go see the Phone Medic of Amarillo, Canyon, and Lubbock, and be on the lookout for our sponsorship offers that we will have coming up later in the year. As we get closer to the off season, we'll probably start putting out sponsorship packages for you guys. Andy, man,
Yeah.
how's your New Year's, brother?
Not too bad, kicking off 2025 with doing the podcast, watching, getting the show going, having fun, getting ready for the playoffs, it's exciting times.
Probably a little bit easier on the ears than some of the karaoke you were hearing last night, I would imagine.
Not, yeah, a little bit.
A little bit easier on the ears, man. But man, I'm glad you guys had a safe New Year's. Hey, want to say, thoughts and good vibes out to everyone in New Orleans. Just terrible way to start off the year. Hope, I know some people have lost their lives, but just want to say, hey, from the Extra Point, our hearts are with you as well. No need for anything like that in this world. But on a better note, hey guys, enjoy the games this weekend. It's week 18. One of the most fun weeks in football is that last week of the season. And I kind of get sentimental around this time of year because for a lot of people, this is going to be the last time they see their team, anything about their team on the field for almost 9 months. I mean, it's a little heartbreaking. I mean, my team's playing next week, but I mean, well, we'll call it playing.
We'll be there.
We'll be there. We'll be there. There'll be a game playing. We'll participate. But that'll do it for the Extra Point, guys. Thank y'all for joining us. Next Tuesday on our normal time at 8:30, we'll be getting you set for the wild card round in the NFL, Super Wild Card Weekend, as they call it. Guys, thank you for watching. Go see our sponsors. Like, share, subscribe, get the notifications on. Go check out Spotify. All of it, guys. Happy New Year. Until then, goodbye. Good night.